Ah, the 1970s. A time when disco reigned supreme. Bell-bottoms were all the rage and playtime was nothing short of magical. This was the golden era of toys, when creativity and imagination ran wild, and toys didn't come with digital screens, just endless possibilities, and occasionally a trip to the ER. Whether you were stretching your Stretch Armstrong to new limits, racing your big wheel down the block, or taking on the impossible challenge of the Rubiks Cube, the toys of the 70s were more than just plastic. They were experiences that shaped a generation. Ready for a trip down memory lane? Let's dive into the groovy world of 70s playtime. Number 1. Star Wars action figures, 1977. Released by Kenner after Star Wars, A New Hope hit theaters, these action figures took the world by storm. Kids and adults could now own mini versions of Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and of course, Darth Vader. And no, the action figures didn't include a tiny tape recorder that said, "Luke, I am your father."
I am your father.
These figures allowed fans to recreate their favorite scenes from the movies or make up completely new ones. Who didn't want to see what would happen if Yoda took on the Millennium Falcon? These action figures not only created a huge market for movie-related merchandise, but they also ignited the imagination of millions. And let's be honest, Star Wars would probably be a little less fun without the endless "I am your father" jokes. Number 2, Speak and Spell, 1978.
Say it. Wild.
Created by Texas Instruments, Speak and Spell was one of the first educational toys to make spelling actually fun, or at least bearable. For many kids, it was the first time they encountered a talking machine that wasn't scolding them for tracking mud into the house. This was basically Siri for the 70s, but with a vocabulary that made it easier for kids to pass their spelling tests. It was high-tech learning before iPads were a thing. Speak and Spell laid the groundwork for future educational toys, combining fun with functionality. Plus, it was the closest thing we had to a robot teacher, and who wouldn't want that? Number 3, Stretch Armstrong, 1976.
Stretch Armstrong!
Kenner's stretchy superhero had a special charm. No matter how hard you pulled or twisted him, Stretch Armstrong always snapped back into shape. He was like the friend who would always bounce back no matter what. Coincidentally, some say Stretch Armstrong might have even inspired Eiichiro Oda's One Piece character, Luffy. Luffy stretches. Stretch Armstrong stretches. Coincidence? Maybe. Stretch Armstrong was the ultimate stress reliever. Who knew a gel-filled toy could provide hours of entertainment? You could stretch him, tie him in knots, and he'd still go back to normal. Pretty much the toy version of Just Walk It Off. Number 4, Pet Rock, 1975. In what may be the greatest practical joke ever played on consumers, Gary Doll turned rocks into pets. They came in little cardboard boxes with breathing holes, which was about as absurd as it sounds. But people loved them. It was literally a rock. But thanks to marketing genius, this became a best-selling pet. No feeding, no walking, just sitting. While it didn't last long, the Pet Rock proved that with clever branding, anything can be a hit, even a rock. It also taught us an important lesson. People will buy anything if it's in a box. Number 5, Light Bright, 1967, but a 70s staple. Hasbro's Light Bright let kids create glowing pictures with colorful pegs. Essentially, it was an intro to pixel art before pixels were a thing. It offered the magic of illumination. You could make a glowing unicorn, a rocket, or just a chaotic mix of colors. No art degree required. It showed kids that art doesn't always have to be messy or involve finger paints. Plus, for many, Light Bright was the closest thing to creating a neon sign without having to work in Las Vegas. Number 6, Weebles, 1971.
But they don't fall down.
Manufactured by Playskool, Weebles were little egg-shaped characters that wobbled but didn't fall down. Resilient, no matter how many times life, or a toddler, knocked them over. The catchphrase alone was enough to make these toys unforgettable. Plus, they didn't require batteries or complicated instructions. Weebles were a lesson in resilience. Keep wobbling and you'll never fall down. It's the motivational speech we all needed as kids, disguised as a toy. Number 7, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, 1964, but thrived in the 70s.
Block is locked off?
Sure, but you can press it right back on again.
Mark's Toys brought these battling robots into homes across America. The two-player game allowed kids to punch their way to victory by knocking the head off their opponent's robot. What's not to love? Why it was special? It was the ultimate showdown in toy form. There was something so satisfying about knocking your friend's robot's block off, literally. Long before video games, Rock'em Sock'em Robots gave kids an outlet for their competitive spirit and maybe some sibling rivalry. Number 8. Simon, 1978. Created by Ralph Baer, Simon was the first game to truly challenge your memory with its series of flashing lights and sounds. It looked simple, but it wasn't. As Simon repeated longer and longer patterns, the pressure mounted. Mess up, and you'd be greeted with a sound of failure that still haunts 70s kids today. Simon turned memory games into a fast-paced challenge. It was addictive, frustrating, and incredibly popular. Think of it as the Wordle of its time, only noisier. Number 9. Play-Doh, 1956, but a 70s icon.
Munchin' USA. Munchin' USA playset comes with...
Originally used as wallpaper cleaner, seriously, Play-Doh transformed into a toy that let kids mold, squish, and create to their heart's content. It was non-toxic, reusable, and came in a rainbow of colors. Plus the smell, that Play-Doh smell. It's been part of childhood ever since. Play-Doh unlocked the creative genius in every child. It was the ultimate tool for DIY fun and artistic expression, and it's still going strong today. Number 10, the Bionic Woman Doll, 1976.
Transmit your voice up to 10 feet through the Bionic Woman's suitcase. Jamie's cat!
Based on the Bionic Woman TV show starring Lindsay Wagner, this doll wasn't just a fashion statement. It was about having super strength and cool technology. Girls didn't just get a Barbie, they got a superheroine. She could run fast, lift heavy stuff, and save the day, all while looking stylish. The Bionic Woman doll was one of the early signs of a shift toward more empowered female characters in toys. Number 11, Nevil Stunt Cycle, 1973. This toy was as daring as the real Nevil himself. You could launch the stunt cycle off ramps and recreate his famous jumps, minus the broken bones. It gave kids a taste of adrenaline without the danger. Nevil's antics on TV made this toy a must-have for any budding daredevil. It's safe to say Nevil inspired generations of stuntmen and thrill-seekers, or at least kids who were really good at crashing bikes. Number 12, Viewmaster, 1939, but wildly popular in the 70s.
See, now Xavier is trying to save him.
Initially intended as an educational tool, the Viewmaster became a gateway to magical worlds and famous locations. Insert a reel, and bam! You're on a 3D safari. It brought images to life in a way nothing else could. Before VR, there was the Viewmaster. This device was a game changer for imaginative play. Who knew a simple plastic viewer could take you on a mini vacation? Number 13, Shrinky Dinks, 1973. Invented by Betty Morris, Shrinky Dinks allowed kids to color on plastic sheets that would shrink to a fraction of their size in the oven. It was like performing science experiments without any of the actual science. Watching your designs shrink was pure magic. Shrinky Dinks became a beloved craft activity, still holding its place in the DIY Hall of Fame. Number 14, Spyro Graph, 1965, but a 70s favorite.
You make them all with the world-famous Spyro Graph.
Invented by engineer Dennis Fisher, Spyro Graph let kids create mesmerizing geometric designs. The patterns felt hypnotic and allowed for endless creativity. Plus, it made you feel like a mini Picasso, even if all you did was trace circles. Spyro Graph is still popular today, showing that creativity and geometry are a winning combo. Number 15, Baby Alive, 1973.
Baby alive, soft and sweet.
Made by Kenner, Baby Alive was the first doll to mimic the real responsibilities of parenting. Yes, it ate, it drank, and it pooped. Yay. It gave kids the chance to play caregiver, feeding the doll and then, surprise, dealing with the aftermath. A true lesson in responsibility, right? Baby Alive set the stage for more realistic role-play toys and prepared future generations for, well, diaper duty. Number 16, Big Wheel, 1969, but a 70s staple.
With big fat wheels in back.
The Big Wheel tricycle was low to the ground with a giant front wheel and made kids feel like they were cruising in style until they tried to take a corner too fast and flipped over. Unlike traditional trikes, the Big Wheel was cooler and more fun, with its iconic skid-out ability when you hit the brakes. It was the 70s version of drifting. The Big Wheel was the ultimate outdoor toy, turning driveways into racetracks and making kids feel like miniature Nevils. minus the hospital bills. Number 17, clackers, late 1960s, exploded in the 70s. Clackers were two acrylic balls on strings that kids swung together to make a satisfying clack sound. But let's be real, they were practically weapons. Nothing felt cooler than mastering the clack-clack rhythm. However, it quickly became a lesson in physics. Swing them wrong, and you'd smack yourself in the face. Though clackers were eventually banned in many places for being too dangerous. Go figure. They were a smash hit while they lasted. Kids of the 70s learned that not all fun is without risk. Number 18, Rubiks Cube, 1974.
To her chambers with Exhibit A, Rubik's Cube. She hasn't been seen since.
Invented by Erno Rubik, this 3D puzzle was the brain-busting challenge that had everyone twisting and turning. Originally, it was called the Magic Cube, and for good reason, because figuring it out was nothing short of magical. It was the ultimate test of patience and problem-solving. Solving it was like unlocking a mystery of the universe, unless you were like most people who peeled off the stickers to solve it. The Rubik's Cube remains one of the most iconic and infuriating toys of all time. It's a rite of passage for any puzzle enthusiast and still a nerd status symbol. Number 19, Dungeons & Dragons, 1974.
With battle-matic arms that fight with grim sword.
Created by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, Dungeons & Dragons, D&D, took board games to a whole new level by introducing role-playing and storytelling into the mix. Basically, it was Monopoly for the nerds, but with dragons and wizards. It was one of the first games where imagination was the most important element. You didn't just roll dice. You became a knight, a wizard, or even a thief if you like stealing things in-game. D&D became the granddaddy of all role-playing games and paved the way for modern video games and geek culture. Plus, it gave millions of people an excuse to roll dice dramatically. Number 20, Pogo Stick, revival in the 1970s.
Here at Weybridge, Surrey, they even have a Pogo Stick Sports Day.
Timeless Rubik's Cube, these iconic playthings weren't just fun, they were a core part of childhood. If you've got some favorites we missed, or if you still got your clackers stored away, careful now, we'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that keep playing, keep smiling, and see you in the next one.